Seeing a massive, grotesque, hairy spider in real life would probably give you a heart attack, but seeing that same thing in a video game counts as an amazing experience. Thankfully, over the years, games have provided us with plenty of nightmare fuel. In this feature, we're going to take a look at 15 of the scariest creatures and entities in games. Given the vast pool of options available to us, it's a given that we're going to miss out on many terrifying creatures. So if any of your favourites get left out, sound off in the comments below. With that out the way, let's get started. Pyramid Head, Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 has the legacy of being one of the greatest horror games ever created, and there are plenty of reasons for that. One of those reasons is Pyramid Head. This terrifying faceless monster is one of the scariest things we've ever come across in a Silent Hill game, and that's saying something. Their hulking figures inspire fear the moment you lay your eyes on them, and watching them silently strut about with murderous intent strikes a primal fear in the player like few other things do. Xenomorph, Alien Isolation. The shadow of the Xenomorph hangs over every single second of the entire Alien Isolation experience. It's one of the most intense, heart-pumping games we've played in years, and the Xenomorph deserves all the credit for that. Powered by some truly impressive AI, the alien stalks you with terrifying intent, and having to hide from it and make your way around it can be absolutely bone-chilling. And the moment you get caught, which will inevitably happen, that stays with you forever, and not in a good way. Amygdala, Bloodborne. We could have populated this entire list with creatures in Bloodborne. From Software has a knack for creating monstrosities that are pulled right from the worst nightmares you never even knew you had. Bloodborne's Amygdala, the optional Great One boss, exemplifies that perfectly. Not only does it have just the most hideous, repulsive physical form, its place in the Bloodborne lore also gives it a unique, fear-inspiring aura. Mimics, Dark Souls. The idea of having enemies disguised as innocent-looking treasure chests is by no means original, but Dark Souls put a spin on it that is so typical from all From Software titles. These are incredibly dangerous enemies, and anytime you realise that you went to open the wrong chest, it's a scary moment. Sure, those moments become more and more infrequent as you experience more of Dark Souls, but when you do see those lanky limbs and razor-sharp teeth, you know you've messed up. Headcrabs, Half-Life. For a series that doesn't try to be out-and-out horror, Half-Life sure does have a good few scary creatures to speak of. The headcrabs are the primary example of that. These parasitic creatures have appeared in a few incarnations over the course of the Half-Life series, with fast headcrabs being particularly terrifying. Watching a host shamble towards you with one of these things on their head is a very clear indication of danger headed your way. Clickers, The Last of Us. Zombies have pretty much become an overdone trope by now, or so many feel, to the point where it's just not very easy for any game to have scary zombies anymore. But the infected in The Last of Us, particularly the clickers, are absolutely terrifying. Though some are blind, thanks to acute hearing, they still pose more of a threat than any other enemy you come across in the game. Their misshapen, twisted faces imprint themselves in your memory, and if you ever come across a group of infected that has multiple clickers in it, you know you're in for a tough time. Guardian, The Evil Within 2. The creations of deranged psychotic photographer Stefano Valentini dominate much of the first half of The Evil Within 2, but none of them cast as large of a shadow over our darkest nightmares as the Guardian does. The most terrifying feature of a Guardian is above its torso, a mesh of the faces of multiple of Valentini's victims, with faces wearing a different frozen expression, though that chainsaw these creatures have in place of an arm is certainly quite freaky as well. Taking these things on in combat always makes for some thrilling, adrenaline-fueled experiences as well. Shambler, Quake. The Shamblers in Quake are scary in a very conventional way. They're monstrously huge, they've got an intimidating visual design, and they're just very formidable as foes. But conventional isn't bad, especially in this case. Take one look at these huge monstrosities coming your way, and you know you've got a tough fight ahead of you. Everything from the way they swing their claws at you to the sounds they make when they get alerted to your presence is daunting. Plus, they can shoot thunderbolts at you. That's not a pleasant experience. Lisa, PT. Lisa isn't technically a creature, so to speak, but let's throw that technicality out the window just for this one entry, because she is one of the most bone-chilling, terrifying things we've ever seen in a video game. PT is just a short demo for a game that sadly will never be made, but it somehow manages to be an absolutely petrifying experience in that short time. Though a lot of that is down to things like the music and the atmosphere, much of the credit for all those scares goes to Lisa. Every single one of her appearances, whether they be scripted or random, is an absolutely blood-curdling experience. Gatherers, Amnesia: Dark Descent. Amnesia games can invoke a sort of fundamental dread in you that few other games can, and though picking out a single creature from the entire series is very, very tough, the Gatherers from Dark Descent come out on top by a small margin. These are the primary enemies in Dark Descent, and the game goes out of its way to make you uncomfortable every time they're around you. Your sanity meter goes down, they make freaky growls when they sense your presence, and the plain and simple fact that your primary tool in the game is running and hiding rather than attacking makes every encounter that much more terrifying. Witch: Left 4 Dead. In a game that's about mowing down hordes upon hordes of zombies, it's kind of easy to get desensitized to any sort of scares. But the Witch in Left 4 Dead is one of the scariest creatures you'll ever run into in a video game. The Crying Girl, as she's often called, is highly sensitive to light and doesn't like it if the players get too close to her. She lets out a chilling, low growl as a warning of sorts if you begin to approach her, and if she does lunge at you to attack you, you're pretty much screwed at that point. Crawlers: Dead Space 2. The Necromorphs have taken various freakish forms over the course of the 3 Dead Space titles, but there's just something inherently unsettling about the Crawlers, who were first introduced in Dead Space 2. I mean, how can the reanimated corpse of an infant be anything but unsettling? The Crawlers themselves also have a twisted, warped visual design, which means the very sight of them is enough to put you on edge, while their exploding attacks can also be quite deadly. Broken Neck Woman: Fatal Frame 2. The Fatal Frame series has delivered some of the most terrifying moments and things we've ever seen in a video game, so when we say that the Broken Neck Woman from Fatal Frame 2 is the freakiest thing we've ever seen in a Fatal Frame game, you know we don't say that lightly. Her blank state, her white kimono, and of course her broken neck all constitute one of the most horrifying designs for a video game enemy ever, and every single one of her appearances will chill you to your very core. SCP-173 SCP Containment Breach. SCP Containment Breach may not be the most well-known horror title out there, but if you're a fan of the genre, this is a game that definitely deserves your time. The SCP-173 doesn't look like much at first, but the more you learn about it, the more you realize just why it's perfectly deserving of being the formidable foe that it is. It's got a terrifying history and is a genuinely threatening and dangerous foe. Librarian: Metro 2033. Much like Quake's Shamblers, the Librarians from Metro 2033 are terrifying for very pure and simple reasons. They look monstrously scary. They invoke a very sudden and immediate response of panic in you, thanks simply to their huge and hulking forms. And when you do come up against them, it doesn't take long to realize that those fears were well founded. The Librarians are some of the toughest, most formidable enemies in the entire game, and an encounter against one can't easily be erased from your memory.
And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily, so make sure you don't miss them by subscribing. We appreciate your support, and we thank you for checking us out.